During the night shift, incidents occur in hospitals that unfold at unpredictable moments. In this video, you will hear 3 true hospital horror stories where people are too scared to react. Have you ever experienced a paranormal event that made you think you were hallucinating or that your mind was playing tricks on you? These stories prove that hospitals are not just a place of healing, but a breathing, chilling presence of their own. There was no logical explanation for what they encountered. Tonight, you will feel that the hospital is not just walls, it has its own breathing, creepy existence. Sit back, turn off the lights. Story 1. The shadow in the security booth. Being in the security booth, which is a must for night shifts, is often an indispensable silent routine. Especially in the hot summer months, the oppressive heat during the sun's most brutal hours makes everything even more difficult. In the summer of 2023, I was still new to the profession. Yes, I am Dr. Max, the famous friend of Dr. Robert Geller. Now, I am one of those who believe in what Dr. Geller has told you in previous stories. To disbelieve or deny what happened to me in the security booth would have been sheer foolishness on my part. It was around 4 a.m. I could feel the silent screams of the hospital corridors. Outside, there was only the faint sound of the wind and the cars starting up under the red lights. Generally, I felt safe at this hour. There were rarely any emergencies, and when I was called for an emergency, I would quickly handle everything and spend the rest of the night in peace. And that night, I was in the security booth, the safest spot in the hospital. Inside, there was almost no sound except for the faint light from the monitors and the monotonous hum of the security cameras. I had a cup of coffee in one hand and was monitoring the cameras with the other. The camera showing the morgue entrance always caught my attention. I wondered if I could see what was invisible to others. I don't know why, but there were a few intriguing aspects of that dark, quiet corridor for me. As these thoughts crossed my mind, I suddenly noticed movement on the monitor. A tall, motionless shadow leaning against the white wall directly opposite the morgue entrance. At first, I thought I was seeing things, or that the camera might be malfunctioning, or maybe it was just a reflection on the monitor. I rubbed my tired eyes and looked again. The shadow was still there, fixed and unsettling. My heart began to race. I rewound the camera footage a few seconds to be sure. The shadow hadn't appeared suddenly. It had glided toward that spot slowly, as if passing through the wall. It moved so slowly that I couldn't believe a human could move that slowly. Small droplets of sweat began to form on my forehead. My knees were tingling. I reached for my security radio but didn't want to call anyone. What would I say? "There's a shadow at the morgue entrance," I told myself. "Don't be ridiculous, Max. It's probably just a janitor." But what was a janitor doing at the morgue entrance after 4 a.m.? As the minutes passed, I felt as if the shadow was about to burst out of the security cameras. The feeling that it was approaching me would not leave my mind. It was as if it was staring at me from inside the monitor. My whole body was numb. I was panicking, but I was trying to find a logical explanation. I had to convince myself of this. At that moment, Dr. Robert Geller came to mind. Now was the perfect time to be with him, because he knew what to do in situations like this. Maybe a tall doctor had come in to take a midnight report, I thought. I was still trying to reassure myself. Have you ever been this scared in your life? You can't control your body. You just watch what it does. When I looked at the shadow, I saw it pause for a moment. But why was it standing still now? Why was it crouched in a corner of a dark corridor? I succumbed to my curiosity. I had to go and see what was happening there with my own eyes. A few minutes later, I finally gathered my courage, swallowed my fear, and got up from my seat. I walked out of the small security booth and toward the end of the corridor. I hurried down the stairs at the end of the corridor, taking 3 or 5 steps at a time. With each step, my heartbeat quickened. as if it were straining against my ribcage. The thought that what I was doing was dangerous on my own weighed heavily on my mind. As I approached the door, I felt a cold wind blowing, as if all the air inside had been sucked out. I slowly opened the door. There was no one inside. The wall was empty. Either the person here had sensed my presence and left, or I was alone with this shadow that could only be seen on the cameras. I took a deep breath. I waited a few seconds for something to happen, but nothing did. With that moment of relief, a wave of shame and fear washed over me. Had I hallucinated? Was it from exhaustion? But if that were the case, were all these feelings just paranoia? I had seen it on the monitor with my own eyes. The only way to find out was to quickly return to the security booth. I ran back to the security booth again. With trembling hands, I checked the recordings. In the last few minutes of the camera showing the morgue entrance, nothing was visible. As if that shadow had never existed. After that night, whenever I'm alone on the night shift and look at the monitors, I always remember that moment. Sometimes, thinking that shadow might appear again, my hair stands on end. I know this sounds crazy to you now, but when you experience what I went through, you'll see that I'm not the one who's crazy. Of course, would you want such proof? Please answer that question first to yourself, then to me. Story 2. Glances in the laundry room. The hospital laundry room is one of the most secluded, forgotten corners of the hospital for those working the night shift. The constant muffled roar of the large industrial machines and the thick, damp air inside seem to completely isolate me from the outside world, often leaving me with a sense of loneliness. My name is Sarah, and this incident occurred in the winter of 2019 while I was working as a laundry attendant at a large city hospital. My night shifts always followed a set routine. Load the machines, unload them, fold the sheets, separate the uniforms. All of these were tasks my body performed automatically. But there were many tasks that required human hands, and being alone in that vast warehouse at night sometimes weighed so heavily on me that I can't describe it. That night, I was continuing with my routine tasks, nearing the end of my shift. There was little time left before the final quarter of the night ended. The hospital was quieter than usual due to the snowstorm battering the windows outside. Only the mundane hum of the large industrial machines and the occasional roar of the massive dryers could be heard. At one point, I noticed that I was yawning from the fatigue caused by my sleeplessness and that my eyes were slowly closing. I could have fallen asleep completely in a short while. Just then, I saw the small staff door in the farthest corner of the laundry room, which was almost never used and which I knew was locked, open slightly. The key to that door was only with me. It was impossible for it to have opened on its own. It was as if a silent breath, a cold draft, had slowly pushed the door open inward, then closed it again on its own. Doubting my own eyes, I rubbed them again. I wasn't sure if what had happened was real. There was one more possibility. Dr. Robert Geller had told me that he had asked the hospital director for the key before leaving. Maybe he had left it open, I thought, but there was no way he could be here at this hour. He had told me beforehand that he would come here in the morning. I said to myself, "Sarah, pull yourself together," and went back to work. But everything had started with that slight gnawing feeling of unease in my stomach. It was as if a pair of eyes were watching me. That suspicion had now formed in my mind. Suddenly, all my fatigue and sleepiness disappeared. 20 minutes later, as I was filling a large wheeled basket with freshly washed sheets still steaming, I noticed the door moving again. This time, everything was clearer. The door wasn't just ajar. I felt as if someone was looking at me from inside. Who was watching me? Was it someone trying to enter here without permission during the night shift? Perhaps it was one of the nurses who had come out for a smoke break when they had the chance. But no, This door didn't open directly to the outside. It was just a door leading to the back of the hospital, rarely used by staff, and when I was here, I usually kept the locked door locked. My heart began to beat even faster. I held my breath out of fear and couldn't make a sound. I was focused only on the door. The door was still closed. It was closed as if it had never been opened. Could these be figments of my imagination? Sometimes people think they did something they didn't do, or vice versa. What did you do when this happened to you? I said to myself, Sarah, you're tired. Go make yourself some more coffee. But that eerie feeling inside me wouldn't go away. On the contrary, it was getting worse. As I turned my face toward the next washing machine, I saw the door handle slowly moving downward. This time, everything was very clear. The likelihood of my eyes deceiving me was very low this time. I had witnessed the door moving even though no one was there. Nevertheless, the door handle slowly moved down and returned to its original position. I couldn't believe my eyes. I was in shock. I couldn't react. My body was warning me with sudden reactions, as if it had gone into alarm mode. Without a moment's hesitation, I walked to the farthest corner of the laundry room and tried to reach the emergency exit door there. I had to leave this place immediately. That door led directly to the hospital's main corridor, and for me, it was a kind of safe zone. As I walked quickly toward the corner, I heard a faint, dragging, rustling sound coming from behind me. It was as if someone was slowly dragging themselves across the floor toward me. The sound was drowned out by the loud noise of the machines, but I could hear it very clearly. I wanted to turn around and check, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. I was almost at the corner, running as fast as I could. I was almost there. I reached out my hand to the handle of the emergency exit door and turned it with my trembling fingers. It was as if it was right behind me and someone was about to grab me by the shoulder. I opened the door and quickly threw myself outside into the bright main corridor of the hospital. Even though I threw myself into the corridor, I was still out of breath. My heart felt like it was about to burst out of my chest. I could feel my feet and hands freezing inside my shoes. There were a few nurses and doctors in the corridor, and I wanted to turn to them and say, the locked door in the laundry room is moving on its own in a strange way, and someone is watching me from inside. But I didn't want them to make fun of me. No one would believe me. They'd probably say, "Have you lost your mind, Sarah? The night shift must be wearing you out." That thought kept circling in my mind, so I decided not to tell anyone. But I couldn't erase what I'd experienced from my mind. After that nightmare of a night, every shift in the laundry room turned into torture for me. Every time I passed by that door, I felt a chill, couldn't take my eyes off it, and couldn't walk without checking behind me. There were some people at the hospital who didn't like me. Maybe it was a bad joke they played, or they'd been watching me for a long time. Maybe it was a relative of a patient who was obsessed with me. But the moment I saw that door handle move with my own eyes and heard that sound coming from behind me, I can't forget those moments now. The night shift's nightmares would never fade from my mind. If you had experienced this and been in my place, would you have continued working in that laundry room? Story 3. Whispers in the restroom. Working night shifts at a hospital is quite exhausting, both physically and mentally. The restrooms on the surgical floor, in particular, take on a strange atmosphere in the late hours of the night, as if they have absorbed all of the hospital's intense energy and tension. I am David, and this incident happened to me in the spring of 2021 on the surgical ward of the hospital during one of the most challenging moments of my night shift. It was around 3:30 a.m., right in the middle of the hospital corridor. The surgery on a young girl who had been brought to the emergency room had just finished, and the entire team was exhausted. I wanted to quickly wash my hands and face at the sink at the end of the corridor to compose myself. The moment I opened the bathroom door, the coldness inside suddenly hit my face. The hairs on my arms stood on end. Normally, it would be warmer inside, but instead, the ventilation seemed to be running at full blast. Due to the long surgery, I didn't even look up at the mirror. I just turned on the faucet and started splashing cold water on my face with my hands. At that moment, I heard a faint rustling sound coming from one of the 3 stalls next to me. At first, I thought I had forgotten that someone might be inside. "Is anyone there?" I muttered, but there was no response. The person inside was probably as tired as I was and didn't want to talk. No one from the team had come behind me, but I thought that someone might have passed by unnoticed when I was in a hurry to get to the bathroom. I shrugged and continued washing my face, but an involuntary suspicion, a strange feeling of unease, had formed inside me. Was there someone inside, or was I just being overly cautious? As I poured the water from my hands into the sink, that rustling sound was heard again, this time more distinctly. It was as if someone was whispering inside the stall, but the words were incomprehensible. I strained my ears for a moment. I gathered all my attention and focused. Who could it be? Someone locking themselves in the bathroom at this hour of the night, whispering to themselves. A voice inside me was screaming, "Get out of here right now!" My feet began to move backward. At the same time, I slowly looked toward the stall door, where my reflection was visible in the mirror. The door was completely closed and no light was leaking out from the bottom, so someone must be inside. But why were they whispering? Why hadn't they locked the door? Gathering my courage, I asked, "Is there anyone inside who can hear me?" My voice came out higher pitched than I expected. I didn't get a response. Only those faint whispers continued, as if the sound was slowly approaching me. Those whispers sounded like a woman's voice, but it was indistinct and muffled. It was as if she wanted to tell me something, but the words wouldn't form. It was a whisper, trying with all its might to be heard by me. I waited for 10 or 15 seconds, and the whispers continued to grow louder. At that moment, I felt I had to make a decision. I didn't want to know what was inside. I quickly turned toward the door and turned the doorknob to look inside. Just then, the whispers suddenly stopped. Instead, I heard a deep, raspy breathing sound coming from inside the cabin. It was as if someone was right behind the door, holding their breath, waiting for me. I froze. My hand remained on the doorknob. My entire body went rigid. With a moment's courage, I closed my eyes and slowly, with trembling hands, lowered the door handle again. I couldn't bring myself to open the door. Instead, I pulled my hand away and moved away from the stall, hurrying toward the bathroom door. I couldn't even glance behind me to check. I didn't hesitate for a moment. I was still panting when I finally made it to the hallway. After what I went through, I became reluctant to use hospital bathrooms alone or during night shifts. Whether it was the restroom next to the morgue door or the freezing operating room restrooms, I promised myself I would never use them alone. Those whispers, that raspy breathing, they keep swirling around in my head. It was most likely a patient struggling to breathe. Maybe it was someone wandering around at night who wasn't in their right mind. Or maybe it was one of my friends trying to play a cruel prank on me. But after what I experienced at that moment, none of that mattered because the fear I felt was real. I still wonder what those whispers were trying to tell me. Have you ever experienced a paranormal event like this in a bathroom before?